this job. I hate this goddamn job and I don't need it.
Have you ever noticed how nobody wants to work anymore? But before we judge them and call it laziness, let's talk about what's really going on here. Workers aren't quitting jobs. They're quitting a broken system. Between soul-crushing burnout, wages that just can't keep up, and jobs that demand everything while giving back next to nothing, people are finally saying enough. So buckle up. We're diving into the work revolution on why nobody wants to work anymore. Right now, the US has over 8.1 million job openings, allegedly. Sounds like plenty of opportunities, right? Well, not exactly, because here's the catch. It takes the average job seeker 6 to 8 months to just land a job. That's half a year of endless applications, countless interviews, and getting ghosted more times than anyone should have to deal with. It's not that people don't want to work. In fact, they're desperate to get hired. But what they're up against is a hiring system that just doesn't make sense. How could there be millions of open jobs and yet so many people are stuck waiting months to hear back, or worse, never hearing anything at all, right? This isn't just about people being picky. It's about a broken system where applicants have to jump through hoops only to be left wondering where they went wrong. It's exhausting, it's discouraging, and it's leaving too many people feeling like they're stuck in limbo on things. So no, the issue isn't people refusing to work. It's that the hiring process itself, honestly, is failing them. You ever applied to a job, heard absolutely nothing, and then see that same posting pop up again weeks later? Yeah, that's what's known as a ghost job. It's a fake listing that companies keep up just to collect resumes or give the illusion that they're expanding. But here's the kicker. A recent survey found that nearly 50% of job postings might not even be for real positions. Let that sink in for a second. Half of the job openings you see could be completely bogus, and no wonder job seekers are burned out. They're putting in all the effort, tailoring resumes, doing interviews, and then, well, nothing. And when they get a response, it's often for a job that doesn't even exist. It's frustrating, misleading, and it's just adding to the growing exhaustion of people trying to work in a system that feels like it's playing games. Truth is, job seekers deserve better than this, and it's about time the hiring process gets a reality check. Remember when a hiring manager would actually read your resume and give you a call? Yeah, those days are pretty much gone. Now, your application gets scanned by AI, and if you don't have the right keywords, or there's a little gap in your employment history, you're automatically rejected before anyone even looks at you. Crazy, right? Highly qualified candidates, people who could actually do the job, are getting shut out by a robot. The system isn't even giving you a fair shot. All that time spent crafting a great resume telling you a story, and then boom, you're filtered out because the AI didn't like a word you used or you didn't hit a checkbox. And honestly, is it really a wonder people just give up? It's draining. It feels like the system's rigged against you. It's not even about what you can actually do anymore. It's all about whether you fit into the robot's idea of what's perfection. So, no wonder so many people are just throwing in the towel. Before the Industrial Revolution, work was tied to the seasons. Imagine it. Farmers planting their crops in the spring, watching them grow throughout the summer, then harvesting them in the fall. And in between all that, they had time to rest, reset, and enjoy life. But then the factories came along and everything had changed. People were suddenly forced into working long 14-hour shifts day after day. The work was overwhelming, the pay was low, and there was no time to breathe. It wasn't just hard, it was dehumanizing. Workers weren't seen as people anymore, but as machines meant to keep going, no matter the cost. And of course, it broke them. Burnout was real, turnover was high, and people started realizing that something needed to change. That's when labor unions started to form. People were done with being treated like that. They weren't asking for anything out of the ordinary. They just wanted fair pay, safer conditions, and to be treated with basic respect. It wasn't an easy battle, though. However, they didn't back down. They stood up, and in doing so, they didn't just survive the system. They changed it. They made sure that the next generation of workers wouldn't have to go through what they did. In the late 1800s, workers fought, and some even died, for the 8-hour workday. They marched, they protested, and they made their voices heard, demanding something simple but powerful. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. It wasn't about luxury. It was all about balance. A fair chance to work, rest, and live. Back then, workers were treated like machines, expendable and overworked, but they pushed back, risking everything to change this system. They weren't just fighting for themselves, but for everyone who would come after them. Today, we're still fighting for that same balance. Long hours, burnout, and a lack of personal time are still real issues. Sure, we've made progress, but it's clear the battle isn't over. The same fight continues. We're still searching for a life where we don't live to work, but work to live. The workers of the past started this struggle, and now it's up to us to keep pushing forward. It's time to reclaim that balance they fought for. Time to work, rest, and most importantly, live. Here's the punchline. Since 1979, worker productivity has boosted up over 80%. But wages? They've only gone up 29.4%. That's right, companies are increasing the workload on people and paying them less in return. It's a huge gap, and it shows just how unstable things really are. Even worse, when you adjust for inflation, today's minimum wage is actually lower than it was back in 1968. Let's think about that for a second. In the face of rising costs, higher productivity, and growing company profits, workers are seeing less of the pie. It's a reality that too many people are living with. Working longer hours, doing more, but not getting ahead. While companies pull in ever-growing profits, the wage gap keeps growing. And the real cost? It's degrading the ability of workers to build a better life, to provide for their families, and have time and energy for the things that matter outside of work. So when you hear about productivity boosting, remember this: it's not just about doing more. It's about who is benefiting from it. And right now, it's not the workers. Younger workers have seen their parents work tirelessly for decades, working long hours, sacrificing their health, and still striving to make ends meet. They saw the effect it took: exhaustion, burnout, and that constant feeling of being underpaid and undervalued. And despite all that hard work, things didn't really improve. It was just one long, exhausting cycle. Now, this generation's saying enough. Why would they settle for the same deal? Why waste their lives at a job that doesn't pay the bills, doesn't respect them, and could replace them within a second? It just doesn't make sense anymore. This isn't just about wanting a higher paycheck. It's about demanding something more: a life with stability, respect, and the time to enjoy it. They're rejecting the idea that work should come at the cost of their mental health, relationships, and happiness. They're fighting for more than just fair wages. They're fighting for a future where they can have it all: meaningful work, time for themselves, and the freedom to live without the constant pressure of never being enough. This generation has seen the alternative, and they're not repeating it. They're drawing the line, and they're not surrendering.
Have a nice day, you miserable bastards. Woo.
You probably heard of quiet quitting, just doing what your job requires, no extra hustle, no going that extra mile. And then there's something called bare minimum Mondays, where workers just ease into the week instead of diving in full speed, control, and burning out by 9 a.m. Analysts are quick to tag this as laziness, saying workers should give more, do more, and push harder. but those who aren't accepting it see it differently. For them, it's not about procrastinating, it's about self-protection. After years of excessive overwork, burnout, and unattainable goals, they've learned the hard way that pushing themselves to the limit only leads to emotional exasperation and frustration. So instead of pushing to the edge, they're setting boundaries.
I quit. What?
They're simply finding ways to keep their mental health undamaged while still doing their job. It's not about doing less, it's about doing just enough to stay reasonable in a world that constantly demands more from them. It's a shift of perspective, working smarter, not harder. For workers, it's about protecting their well-being, restoring their time, and refusing to burn out just to meet someone else's idea of productivity. Survival instinct over the West's hustle culture. A lot of young workers are leaving traditional jobs behind and diving into gig work. You know, Uber, DoorDash, freelancing, all that jazz. Why? Because at least with gig work, they get control over their time. No strict schedules, no boss hovering over them. Feels like a way to break free and live life on their own terms. But here's the reality check. Even that freedom has a price. There's no health insurance, no paid sick days, no retirement benefits. Pay can be all over the place, and companies are taking a big cut, leaving workers with less than they should be getting for their time and effort. What seemed like a smart, flexible, self-driven way to make a living quickly turns into a constant balancing act, struggling to make ends meet with no real stability. The freedom that gig work promised doesn't always feel so freeing when you're trying to figure out how to survive without the safety nets that traditional jobs come with. In the end, this shows how the system's letting everyone down. Workers have to choose between jobs that offer security, but come with their own issues, or gig work that feels empowering, but is full of uncertainty. Either way, something's broken, and it's not working for anyone. So, how do we fix work? It starts with the basics. First, pay people enough to live. This isn't complicated. If someone's working full-time and still can't afford rent, groceries, and basic needs, the problem isn't a labor shortage, it's a wage shortage. People aren't asking for luxury, they just want to live with dignity. Next, fix the hiring process. Job seekers aren't just paper resumes. Ditch the broken AI filters. Stop ghosting candidates and give them a call back.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
Okay, I'm just joking around there. But seriously, hire humans to evaluate real humans. Treat applicants with respect, and you'll find the right people a whole lot faster. And most importantly, respect workers as people, not just labor. People aren't machines. They need rest, fair hours, decent pay, and a sense that what they do actually matters. Until companies get that, they'll keep wondering why no one wants to work. Here's the hopeful part. None of this is impossible. They're real, tangible fixes. We can rebuild a system where work actually works for everyone. At the end of the day, people aren't lazy, they're just tired of being exploited. Fair wages, respect, and a work-life balance aren't too much to ask for, right? If this resonated with you, hit that like and subscribe button. Most importantly, what's your take on this? Drop a comment down below. And remember, you deserve better than just surviving. And I'll see you in the next one.